I was asked for some book recommendations on genocide, and there are probably many hundreds here that are related to it, but I chewed on it during the hours driving today and came up with a short-ish list that covers both the psychology and practice of it in different ways. Now, obviously, in any of the subject areas I'm going to bring up, there's tons of other options there too, but this is just like a little scratch of the surface for each section. So I'm just going to go through a list of things and hold them up for you to see, and if you're interested, you can look those up and, see if they suit your interests. Okay, so, ready for this? All right, so, first, on genocide, there are 6 that showed up in a video I did a couple weeks ago here. This is one of them. This is a reader, so it's a collection of excerpts relevant to the subject of genocide. This is a giant-ass handbook on genocide studies, kind of summing up some of the state-of-the-art in the discipline of studying this sort of thing. And then there are several books I have kind of introducing the concepts. So this is Genocide, wow, look at that, a comprehensive introduction. Ooh, kind of textbooky here. Also fat, textbook style. And then there are a handful here that are also kind of relevant to that, but are basically like general histories of the practice of genocide, how it's happened. So here is A Century of Genocide. Ooh. And here is Genocide, A World History. There's a lot more examples that could have gone into this. This is an intentionally pretty skinny book here. This is The Specter of Genocide, looking at, well, as it says, some historical perspectives on a lot of these practices. Hello, you're in the way. Let's see. So, related to the question of genocide, it's not just, intentionally unaliving, but there's also things like mass starvation. Ooh, sometimes when this is deliberate, it fits that definition. So here are 3 famines. And in this you can see specific policies that made them come about and made them worse. Ooh, you want an example of that? How about the famine plot, which is a controversial take on the Irish so-called famine, which is kind of an engineered genocide because it came about through intentional policy issues and was allowed to proceed completely unchecked. So, yay. All right, now let's move into a few different things that sort of like make this possible. There's the basic question of a white working class and how, foreigners don't fit that. Or there's this nice one here, not a nation of immigrants. Again, kind of looking at how settler colonies also tend to be, go figure, super racist places. And then, a history of xenophobia, of fear and strangers. Fear is an interesting topic there. I'll come back to that one a little later. Taking this into a bit of U.S. history, I'll give you a few examples here. Probably obvious that the Klan would show up in this, since anti-immigrant stuff was a big, big part of their identity. And then there's the whole, America First movement. So here's Behold America by Sarah Churchwell. Let's see. A few more on American history. Honestly, Pearlstein's got 4 books in a row here that are all essential reading on modern American political history. This is the first one, Before the Storm, about the rise of Barry Goldwater and how significant that is to the way that the conservative movement changed itself. Democracy in Chains is another one that's sort of relevant to that because it looks at how opposition to desegregation was a significant part of the realignment. Then there's the conspiracy theories and the Birchers. So here's A Conspiratorial Life. This one is also kind of important, and oh gosh, if you're going to think about Ronald Reagan, super racist president, and also A. Bircher. Then there's, let's see, in that time period here, so in that important 60s and 70s transition, A Time for Choosing, on the making of modern American conservatism. And let's see, 2 more on that. So Far-Right Vanguard, showing that, well, modern conservatism isn't actually conservative, it's actually reactionary. and also pretty racist. So here is Conservatism and Racism and Why in America They Are the Same. Nice title. Let's see. If you want to look at some contemporary history on this, so there is the Age of Insurrection. This is a nice look here at changes from the 1970s to the present, taking us all the way up until storming the Capitol. Here's one that sort of focuses on Europe and deals with Islamophobia, the identitarians. There's Insurgent Supremacists. This one is, again, back on American history, so looking at the far right's challenges. These two are both on the white power movement and how it's going to ruin everything for you. So bring the war home and everything you love will burn. Nice title, huh? Okay. Getting a theme here. Let's see. If you want to think about the long-term unfolding of this sort of thing, well, there's a nice little sociological work here, Anti-Intellectualism in American Life, which kind of helps to explain why we can get that way. And then this is a nice work of sociology, Strangers in Their Own Land, looking at the psychology of Middle America and how fearful it is of change and difference. Thinking about conservatism itself as well as fear. Corey Robin has two great books here. This is the second edition of The Reactionary Mind that sort of updates it and looks at a history of conservatism. And then there's a nice history of fear, the use of fear in politics, which is obviously pretty relevant to getting people to do genocides. There's obviously a relationship here to fascism and neo-fascism. So that's Roger Griffin is one of the best historians of fascism. He's got a ton of books on it. This is a nice little introduction to his basic thought. Finkelstein's another interesting author on fascism. So here is From Fascism to Populism in History, which helps to connect it to the contemporary world. And there's two interesting recent works here, Fascism Old and New, and Rising Fascism in America, both of which kind of look at the contemporary forms of neo-fascism brewing here. To look at fascism, you kind of have to have some idea of what nationalism is, so here are two classic works on nationalism from two very different perspectives that might be useful. And then, since a lot of people are interested in the Israel-Palestine issue, this is another one of Smith's books on how religion plays a part in some forms of nationalism. The Eliminationists, how you can kind of go from racist views to actually getting rid of people, and the Supremacist Syndrome, a nice psychological study of what's going on with this stuff. Let's see. Quickly looking at some practical examples, looking first at the United States. So here is A Little Matter of Genocide, and American Holocaust, and Un-American Genocide, and Continental Reckoning. And I could not touch this shelf without, plugging a book that was really, really important for me as a child and kind of like getting me thinking about this sort of thing. Obviously, the Shoah is a key one here, so thinking first about basics, if you're not really familiar how it works. So Vork's Holocaust, A History, and then The Origins of the Final Solution are important works there on how it happened. As far as the psychology of it, you can look at the Nuremberg interviews, some really scary stuff in there, The Roots of Evil, the Origins of Nazi Violence, and Ordinary Men, which shows how ordinary people can be pushed into doing this sort of thing. And then another one here, sort of relevant to recent topic. So let's take it into Israel here. So here's Ethnocracy by Yiftashel. Here's Finkelstein's Haza. And then there's Halpers, An Israeli in Palestine, and Pape's Biggest Prison on Earth, both of which are making essentially a genocidal argument. Weitzman is also a great author here. This one is a slightly different topic, but it might be of interest to some of you. And I would feel bad if I didn't end on a slightly more hopeful note in such a long video showing tons and tons of books. So first off, two fun ones here on anti-racism here. Love the title of this collection of Ignatiev's essays here. And then Tim Wise is always great. He's a fantastic speaker too. Look him up. The Cosmopolitan Tradition is a really good cure to nationalism. And then there's How to Be an Anti-Racist, because we all should be. And then two interesting works looking at how you can subvert the psychology of tribalism that can lend itself to genocide without, actually falling into it. So, out of time.